All right. Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Public Works, Finance, and Safety Committee meeting of Monday, April 6, 2020. And we're trying something new here. We've only got half of our council members in the chambers, and the other half is participating remotely. Everybody's here, and the staff is present remotely as well through an online application, and you should be able to see them speaking when they make a presentation. Otherwise, there's just the four council members in the chambers and 6 participating virtually. So the first item is the public input, and if people have called in, they should be able to talk into the speakerphone. Yes, Councilman Vilhauer.
I got a question for Matt as long as we're in public input. I participated in a couple different meetings last week remotely. What's the proper protocol for voting for those that are not present? You know, we just always ask for a vote, and if everybody says aye, we're good. At the meetings I participated in last week, those that were not present had to be polled. Is that correct?
I think that was the question what we do in for voting.
Right, for those that are not present in the council chambers.
I think that we should still do a voice vote, and if there are no nays, then the motion carries, and if
Okay.
there are nays, then we do a roll call.
Of everybody, okay.
Okay, so even though half of the people aren't here. Okay.
Yes.
Is there any member of the public that has called in and would like to speak? If so, please state your name. Hearing none, I'll move on. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. So moved. Have a motion by Holeen and a second by Rademski. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 4 is the regular agenda. Starting with item A, we have authorization for the Forestry Division to purchase a New Holland U80C tractor loader off of Sourcewell contract in the amount of $78,900.
So moved.
I have a motion by Vilhauer and a second by Holeen. And I believe our Park and Rec Director, Terry Kelly, is here, and I should have checked, but go ahead and start talking, Terry, and then your picture will
Okay, hopefully I'm here. Everybody see me?
Yes, we can. Very good.
Okay, well, I'm a little upset, Peter. For some reason, my camera seems to add 50 pounds. I'm not sure what's going on, but I didn't think it was this big, but hey, no, this comes before you with a recommendation from the Park and Rec Board that met on March 31st. This is a budgeted item in the amount of $80,000. The Sourcewell contract came in at $78,900. This again, it comes with a recommendation from the from the Park and Rec Board, and I'm going to beat you to a few questions. Obviously, through conversations with the mayor, Kristen. We are being very frugal. We are essential only spending. And I do want to reiterate right away off the top that this piece of equipment, truly I do feel is an essential purchase for the Forestry Division. This is basically, and I said at the Park and Rec Board meeting, basically this is trying to remove snow without a snowplow or run a police department without a police car. We have been limped along for about the last 3 years. Our current loader is on its last leg. If I didn't feel this was essential, I honestly would have worked on non-essential spending and held back on this. So to the council's benefit, this is one I truly feel for us to do our operation efficiently and effectively. I am asking for the go-ahead for this approval. And I'll entertain any questions.
All right, thank you. Council, do we have questions?
Question by Bueller.
Go ahead, Bruce.
Hi, Terry.
Hey, Bruce, how you doing?
good, thanks. Anyway, you look as skinny as ever, I think.
Thank you, Bruce. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
yeah. No, I just we had a discussion about, I was at the Park and Rec Board meeting last week, and Terry, I know we talked a little bit about the possibility of a lease program for one of these for now. Did we have an opportunity to check into that at all? Do you know?
You know, as a matter of fact, we tried to check in, Bruce. 0 results. We did not get any information back in the 1 week turnaround. So I apologize for that, but straight face, no, we have not got an estimate on what that would cost.
Who did we talk to, Terry?
The Farmers Implement that actually provided the Sourcewell quote, they were the first one we went to because New Holland is actually the product that we would like to have, and we did not get back. I know they're working out of Wisconsin, so, but we did not get facts and figures to present to you. That is the only one, Bruce, that we did speak to.
Okay, because I know we talked about somebody like Bierschbach equipment, something similar that could maybe get us by until until we could purchase one, maybe down the road.
And that is, you know, it's obviously an option. We could pursue that in the next week or two, you know, whatever it takes. I just know we're getting geared up real quick to start removing a lot of trees. Or currently, the forestry loader is what that is the cleanup item. You know, we've got the bucket truck, the saws that drop the tree to the ground. What this piece of equipment does is actually does the cleanup. It grapple saws the trunks, the branches, and right now our current piece of equipment really is not functioning to actually provide that. So I'm hesitant to delay this a whole lot longer, but if that's the council decision, I can continue to look into it.
All right, thank you. I would like to point out that right now we're in the throes of a pandemic, and we're asking people to stay home whenever possible and only go out when necessary. And we're not laying off the city staff. We're trying to keep everyone busy. So it is kind of a unique time. It's a summer when the parks and the facilities will be less used probably than any other summer or any future summer coming. And so it's a good time for us to be getting in and getting some of this work done. And the staff members on the park will be shifted around too, so we can put more people onto this type of activity, the maintenance activity that you really got to watch out having people around when you're doing it. So that would be in favor of going ahead and getting this piece of equipment now so that we can keep going with the tree removal work that we know we need to do. Just food for thought. Are there other council members that, Councilman Vilhauer?
I sat in on the Park and Rec Board, or teamed in on the Park and Rec Board meeting last week, and I heard the conversation that, you know, pretty strongly loud and clear that we do need this. I know there was thoughts about, you know, seeing if we could lease it. I don't know if a couple more weeks, if we were to get more information, would set things back or would give us new information. But there was no doubt hearing that conversation that this is something that's needed and has been needed for a long time. 'Cause if not mistaken, that's been on the drawing board for several years, hasn't it, TK, as far as getting that?
Yeah, we're on year number 3 that we've cut this out of our budget. Finally, at last year's budget hearings, in the meetings with the mayor and finance officer Bob Zine, this was one thing we said, you can cut everything we got, but this is one piece of equipment that we do feel is essential to continue to provide the services we provide. So this is one I really will push strong for, and you're right, Glenn, it's time. Our other one takes about an hour and a half to get to the other side of the lake because we've lost the top 2 gears of the transmission. It really needs, for us to provide a forestry service, needs to be replaced.
I guess I would
Albertson?
encourage a yes vote on this to my colleagues.
All right, thank you. Councilman Albertson?
Terry, just in conjunction with that, I was going to call you and ask you, I'm not opposed to this truck at all. I'm wondering if you've looked into the potential of leasing a chop saw type deal to go right into what you've been talking about here with all of the trees that are coming up. So I just was going to ask you, but I know I didn't ask you about a lease into it, but wondering if that'd be a possibility too, as you got maybe 10 trees down from the golf course this year, but according to what they said, you could have gotten half of them if we had done something. So just something for your thought process anyway. I'm not opposed to the truck.
No, and Councilman Albertson, as far as the grapple saw, we've had great communications with Terex. They're new to the game as far as the grapple saw. And we've been working diligently. It kind of maybe took a step back in what we're dealing with now, but those conversations move forward. They don't have a lease program, but the people from Terex have been very responsive to want to assist the city and probably giving us probably the best price you'll ever see. So it's in the works, but we haven't seen the emerald ash borer show up yet in Watertown. So I do plan on proposing that as a 2021 full purchase line item within the budget. So if that helps, Dan, anyway, if that's what you're referring to.
It is, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Matt? You look-
Mayor, this is Matt Roby.
Go ahead.
Say, I just want to address Glenn's question before you vote again. I was mistakenly taking my cue from the way the legislature conducted their business last Monday. I did just research it real quick, and if there is less than a quorum in the place where the public is available to take in the meeting, the vote must be done by roll call.
Okay, we need to do roll call votes then. When the time comes. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to say about this? All right, then. Kristen, can you do the roll call vote?
I can. Okay. Albertson,
Yes.
Bueller,
Yes.
Hoyer,
Yes.
Helene,
Yes.
Lallam,
Yes.
Manti. Yes. Rademski,
Yes.
Roby,
Yes.
Billhauer,
Yes.
Y.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item B is approval of a professional services agreement for services associated with the design of 10th Avenue North reconstruction, project number 2007, with Civil Design, Inc., CDI, in the amount not to exceed $78,740, authorizing the mayor to sign all applicable documents.
So moved.
I have a motion by Billhauer and a second by Holeen. And I'll ask the Public Works Director, City Engineer Heath Bonai to tell us about this.
Thank you, Mayor. So this would be a professional services agreement with CDI, that's Civil Design Incorporated. They're located in Brookings. The engineering staff went out and advertised a request for proposals here back in March, and we received 5 proposals from 5 different consultants to perform the design and bidding services for the reconstruction of 10th Avenue North. This is the segment of 10th Avenue North that runs from Highway 81 west to 4th Street west. So just about to the hospital there, just east of the hospital, is the segment that this would include. The 5 proposals varied in price from CDI is the low at $78,740 up to a high of $185,940. There were 3 of them up there around that 170, 180,000, and the 2 lower ones, CDI and then IDG was the second lowest at 110,000. We had a committee of, I think there were 4 or 5 of us on the committee that did the selection for the consultant. We rated them according to their proposals. One of those components, one of the criteria on the ratings included cost. Others included the firm's ability, the specific staff they have assigned to the project, things of that nature. And we came up with the conclusion to propose to the council that we work with CDI on the design for this project. Be glad to help answer any questions. This is well within the budget for this year. We had approved or budgeted, I should say, up to $180,000 for this work, and CDI came in well below that. We did call CDI and discuss with them their numbers, wanted to make sure that they were comfortable with the numbers, confident that they didn't miss anything in the proposal, and they were very comfortable with their numbers and wanted to provide us these services for that amount.
Heath, do you have a ballpark estimate for the cost of the project itself, not the engineering?
I'm sorry, Mayor, no, I did not have that.
Oh, that's all right.
That's a 2021 project, right? Okay.
Right. Right, Heath, that's not a project this year.
Correct. We would design this through this year and put it out for bid probably in December, and then award a bid early next year for 2021 construction.
Okay, thank you. Council, are there questions? Councilman Billhauer?
I've got a question, Heath. In the second paragraph of your explanation, it says, "We have teamed up with Watertown Municipal Utilities to get the benefits of working under one engineering consultant." Makes a lot of sense. Are they paying, are they offered to pay for any part of the fee? Have we asked them?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yes, Glenn, Councilman Billhauer, that's a great point. Sorry, I glossed over that. We got together with municipal utilities and talked to them as we do every year on our projects. This one in particular, we wanted to know if they had any utility work needs, whether it been electric, gas, or water. They do have some water line work that they would like to do within this stretch of 10th Avenue. And so we further met and further discussed what it would look like if they would just come on board with our consultant. We would include them in our request for proposals, include a detailed scope of work for their water line work that they need designed. And that's exactly what we did, and each consultant provided a separate schedule, a separate cost for municipal utilities. And at the last municipal utilities board meeting, they actually did already approve their component of this work for this design of their water system for an amount. I think CDI proposed them just under $17,000. So municipal utilities is already on board with CDI and are ready for us to execute our contract. I appreciate you bringing that up.
Okay, thanks, Heath.
All right, Councilman Rademski?
Heath, does the reconstruction of this 10th Avenue project, does that include widening that roadway?
Yes, it does.
How much more would it be widened?
The goal would be to have a street section that's similar to what's in front of the hospital, to have that continue on all the way east to Highway 81. Some of those fine-tuned details, the exact dimensions will be worked out here in the scoping and design phases with CDI. We're open for proposals with them on what that street section will look like, whether we can entertain allowing parking back on either side, whether we want a continuous two-way left turn lane, that whole stretch. That's something we're going to work on with our consultant and try to figure out the best way to lay out the new street section. But as far as the width goes, we hope to match the width that's in front of the hospital now.
Okay, what type of surface are we looking at? Asphalt, I would guess?
Yeah, another good question. We actually left that open in the proposal. My Alexa is talking at me in the kitchen here. I apologize. We left that open in the proposal for the consultant to provide us with some alternatives. For a segment of this, for this stretch of paving, we think we'd be able to entertain a bid alternate for asphalt or concrete and be open to, receiving whichever one seemed to be the most equitable for the community.
Thank you.
I see Councilman Lallam. Did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, a couple of them actually. It looks like we're stopping before we get in front of the hospital. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, the extent would be, there's a taper as you go just east of 4th Street Northwest. It tapers and narrows up as you approach 3rd Street. That's the extent we'd be going to, is to tie into the wider part there just east of 4th.
Do we have to look at any eminent domain on that to widen that road out?
No, we're hoping to avoid that with any, again, that's something that's in our proposal to work with a consultant on, but they would provide recommendation if there's any additional need for right-of-way. Right now, they're under the impression, and staff too agrees, that we can probably get this done without procuring any additional right-of-way. We will probably need some temporary construction easements, however, but that's part of what this contract would entail as well, as the consultant helping us secure those easements.
Yeah, some of those driveways and the houses and or garages are close to that curb anyway, so that'd be something I'd really like to make sure that we're not getting into a pickle that we're going to run into when we start widening out.
Yeah, those are definitely the considerations that the consultant and the engineering staff will be looking at as we move forward.
Has utilities looked at lighting on 10th Avenue as well? That's a pretty dark stretch of road. Did he say anything about that at all?
No, I haven't talked directly with him about the lighting, but that is something that I've had in the back of my mind with this project, with this being kind of a thoroughfare, if you will, to the hospital from the east. Having some better street lighting through there, I think, would also be a good component to add. So those are things we'll continue to be in discussions with municipal utilities on as well.
Yeah, the other thing would be, that is an emergency snow route / it's where the hospital gets a lot of the ambulance coming from the east on. So we're going to have to be cognizant of the fact that that's going to close down, I would assume, for most of the summer. As far as people going, from there to the hospital, it's going to have to probably do some pretty strategic planning as far as where we route people over there.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we were specific about in our proposal, that we would want some strong recommendations from the consultant on a good, solid alternative temporary detour during the construction phases. With this proposal, they will also provide us a recommendation for how to phase this actual work in next year. Whether we do it block by block or whether we do half street, there's all kinds of options we can entertain. But the corresponding temporary detour routes are a component of that we've requested of them too.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Councilman Hoyer.
Heath, I'm just curious, have we looked at the sidewalk situation on both sides too, and how this might potentially impact that? I know in some old neighborhoods like this, some of them are a little close to the edge of the road anyway, and in some cases they're just missing. So I don't know if we're going to be in there anyway, if that's something that we take care of while we're at it.
Yeah, that's a good question, Councilman Hoyer. We will be looking at and assessing the sidewalks, current conditions, current alignments, whether they should be on one or both sides. All those things need to be discussed through the design phase. There are, to the point that Councilman Lala made, there are some constraints where if we do have sidewalk present, it's likely going to prevent people from parking in their driveways. We obviously don't want to cause those conflicts to where people are parking over a newly installed sidewalk and then not meeting our ordinances in that respect. But the conditions, if we're putting in, realigning and having to put in new, that would be all part of this project. But the details of that still have to be worked out yet through the design phase.
Thank you. Other questions, council members? Not seeing any, so Kristen, please do a roll call vote.
Okay. Albertson?
Yes.
Bueller?
Yes.
Hoyer?
Yes?
Oline? Lallam?
Yes.
Manti? Yes. Rudemsky?
Yes.
Roby?
Aye.
Billhauer?
Aye.
White?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is D. Nope, C. Sorry, I almost skipped one. approval of an agreement with the State of South Dakota Department of Transportation for future 20th Avenue Southeast Bridge warranty work, authorizing the mayor to sign all related documents.
So,
A motion by Rademski,
Second.
second by Hoyer. And Heath, will you tell us about this one, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. The council will recall that we, not too long ago, approved the mayor to sign and send a letter pertaining to this subject. This relates to the bridge on 20th Avenue South. We did an epoxy deck seal on that bridge in 2018. That was part of a 2017 big grant application for that deck seal. There's been discussion clear back since the bridge was constructed in 2010 that relate to the camber and the girders for the bridge and how they have some excessive camber in them. What we did with that letter is we memorialized that issue with the DOT, simply stating to them we just would like something put in the file regarding our discussions and their commitment to help us resolve that in the future with a new a deck pour, essentially. What we've agreed upon and the DOT brought back to us after receiving that letter is a formal agreement that acknowledges just that they would like to get the life out of this epoxy seal that we just completed. They'd like to see the life cycle of that used up so that money is not wasted. And then at that point, we'd reassess where that bridge is at, if the camber has stabilized in those girders, and if so.
Heath, you're cutting out. We can't hear you, Heath. Heath, we cannot hear you, nor can we read your lips. All right, we're having technical difficulties here. Heath, can you hear me? Can you nod your head if you hear me? I don't think our city engineer hears what we're saying. So, does any of the council members have any questions about the agreement which the DOT has offered us? I didn't get any motion yet, did I? Oh, okay, Rademski and Hoyer.
Oh, our phone hung up. That's probably why. 1 second.
Okay. Do we need to pause the whole thing?
Yeah, let's
Just hang on.
alrighty. Phone may have that thing. Sorry. I don't know why it hung up.
Welcome to the audio conferencing center. Please enter a Sorry, I can't find a meeting with that number. Try entering your conference ID again and then press pound. You're now joining the meeting.
Hello? I sent a message to them, let them know they're off.
Okay, yeah, not sure what happened, the conference phone hung up, so Heath, if you want to start exactly in the middle of where you were at before.
Oh, no.
No!
Do you have our connectivity now, Pete?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great. Do you need me to wrap up part of that discussion?
Yes, just finish it off.
Certainly. So essentially what this agreement will do then is solidify our previous discussions and have a formal agreement for the files for the DOT and for the city, for our records, and for the DOT's commitment to help us out with that resurfacing in the future.
Okay, so if we need this in the future, the state's going to pay for it. We're monitoring now. And later, when it comes up, this agreement makes it clear if we're all gone and everybody at the state is gone, it's memorialized that they're gonna do this. Councilman Hoyer?
I would just ask, with the girders having the issues they have, does it pose any safety issues at all while we wait for the lifespan to go out?
Did you hear that question, Heath?
I did. Thank you.
Go ahead.
There wouldn't be any safety concern. It's really just a rideability issue right now. That excessive camber puts a little rougher ride in that bridge as you go over it, particularly for truck traffic. But essentially what happened is my understanding anyway, is those girders were over-designed. So, and they are not being weighted by the slab of the bridge deck enough to take the camber out of them. So essentially they were built stouter and heavier duty than they needed to be. So from a safety standpoint, there aren't any issues of or concern of failure or anything like that.
Perfect.
Okay, any other questions?
Actually, Sarah?
Yes, Councilman Vilhauer.
Just to follow up to that question, Heath, this bridge will still be always part of our biannual bridge inspection, won't it? So we'll still be looking.
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, anyone else? Okay, Kristen, will you please take a roll call vote?
Okay. Albertson,
Yes.
Bueller,
Yes.
Hoyer,
Aye.
Pauline,
Aye.
Lallam,
Yes.
Manti? Yes. Rudemski,
Yes.
Roby,
Aye.
Vilhauer,
Aye.
Y.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Now, item D is approval to designate 20th Avenue South and a portion of 29th Street East, also known as the South Bypass, as Dale Jones Memorial Parkway, and authorizing the city engineer to sign a right-of-way encroachment agreement for the installation of a memorial monument and roadway signing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vilhauer and a second by Holeen, and I'll ask Heath Von Eye to tell us about this one.
Thank you, Mayor. Pete, if I could take over the wheel, I will share my screen on this one. There's a few documents I'd like to show to the council.
Okay. If you want to go ahead and share.
Great. Let me, did that work?
Yep, we can see your screen.
Great. So, council, as you know, this request was brought forward a couple of months ago in relation to a tragic accident that occurred on 20th Avenue South. We had some interested parties in the community that wanted to do something to memorialize the life of that individual. One of those efforts was brought forth to me by Adam Reeves, who's a member of the Deputies Union. That union would like to have this route of what we call the South Bypass, which includes all of 20th Avenue South and then a portion of 29th Street East, declared or proclaimed as Dale Jones Memorial Parkway. The second component to this is that another party on a separate effort would like to also put a stone type of memorial at the actual location of the accident. This action tonight here would allow me to issue a right-of-way encroachment agreement for both these efforts. I'll talk on the street signing or the dedication. That would not be a formal street renaming. It would not affect any addresses along that route. It would simply be a designation as a memorial parkway. I've got some examples here of a sign of similar nature. The sign would be constructed to meet the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices standards. That's the MUTCD manual that we use for all of our signing and striping for public rights of way. So it'd be a brown colored sign with white lettering on it, as you see here. The specific sign, I'll zoom out here, for this effort would read something like this: Dale Jones Memorial Parkway. And the general locations that these would be installed would be, so here is the south bypass loop. You have a portion of 29th, and then it converts to 20th Avenue and ties up into Highway 20 and 212. So as you come off 212 onto the south bypass, there'd be a sign here that calls this out as the Dale Jones Memorial Parkway. And then the Highway 81 thoroughfare that cuts through here at the roundabout, as you come off to the east, there'd be a sign. And if you come off 81 to the west, there'd also be a sign. And then as you, from the east side of the south bypass, as you come off of Highway 212 and head south, there would be a sign there as well that designates this route as Dale Jones Memorial Parkway. The stone, the monument, would be placed roughly down here by the intersection of Highway 81 where the actual location of the accident was at. And that party would, both parties would locate those signs and or the monument in a location that myself and the street superintendent would identify for them in the field so that it meets all of our sign setback requirements and regulations. That generally summarizes. Oh, I should say too that the parties wanting to present this, they certainly did want to come tonight. They wanted to be at the meeting. They understand how we're meeting remotely. They just wanted me to express their sincere appreciation for any consideration you guys would give towards this project, and that they would be more than willing to work with staff on the final details as we work those out.
All right, thank you. All right, do we have questions or comments from the staff? Glenn, do you have any? Councilman Billhauer?
This is a city street versus a state highway, so we don't have any issue as far as needing approval from the DOT, is that correct?
That's correct.
Also, I mean, we have, my only concern, if it is that, I'm fully support this, but are we potentially setting some kind of precedent with doing this? But I also think that we've named other streets in town. I think of Bruin Avenue, for example, named after. So I guess I'll just throw that out for if there's any concern on anybody's part. That thought just crossed my mind.
Thank you.
Sarah, this is Don.
Councilman Roby?
Glenn, I have the same question. We have run through this issue on the DOT commission. I'm in favor of this, but I do think that we should make sure we have a set of requirements and such guidelines for future opportunities. So Heath, what I'm going to ask you to do is interface with a couple guys in Pierre at the DOT. They have been through this exercise, and we should have those guidelines put in place.
Excellent suggestion. Other comments?
Mayor, this is Adam.
Councilman Lallam?
Heath, the only thing I'm fully in favor of this. The only thing I would maybe put a little bit of caution to is if we're going to place a stone or something, we don't put that into something that potentially could have a catastrophic event that happens to it, such as a car losing control, and unfortunately we have, the incident that comes back to bite us because of it. So I would just caution us, if we're going to do something along those lines, that, we don't put in something that could potentially cause more damage. But I think it's a great idea. It's just, let's just be cautious on where we put something.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, Kristen, please take a roll call vote.
Okay. Albertson.
Aye.
Bueller.
Aye.
Hoyer.
Aye.
Pauline. Lallam.
Aye.
Manti. Aye. Rademski.
Aye.
Roby.
Aye.
Billhauer.
Aye.
Y.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Item E is authorization for the mayor to sign a letter to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers indicating the intent of the city to sponsor a flood control study. A motion by Helene
Second.
and a second by Hoyer. And I will go ahead and explain this one myself. The city received a grant in, I think 2016, to complete a study that was necessary before we could move forward with pursuing a flood control project. And the Corps would move forward with completing this study only if the city would agree to be the sponsor and pay for half of the cost. So we asked the DENR to help us pay for this. The DENR is paying for half of our cost, and then the Lake Kempesca Water Project District is paying for half of the remaining. And every year, I'm sending this letter to the Corps of Engineers telling them that we're still interested in completing this study. We can't move forward with any kind of flood control for our community until this study is completed. So it is just kind of a routine matter. But it's interesting to note this year our grant from the state expired on March 31st. So we had to go through some activity with the state, and then they re-upped the grant. They gave us 2 more years, and they're continuing to offer their support for their part in it. Are there any questions? Councilman Helene.
Thank you, Mayor. How much money are we talking?
We are, so the total cost is about $900,000, and it's probably gone up, but because that estimate was done by the Corps of Engineers 5 years ago. But the state, so the half of it that's local is $450,000, and the state is paying for half of the local, so they're paying $225,000, and then the $225,000 local is being split by the water project district, so it's $113,000. I suspect that might go up when they actually do the work. It might be more because so much time has passed, but they aren't going to redo their estimate on the cost. They just want to know at this point, are we still interested in pursuing this? And who knows, they might eat the extra amount to the federal government because this has taken so long on their part to move forward with it.
Mayor, so it is basically the Corps of Engineers that we're waiting on to finish
Yes.
this? Okay,
The Corps of Engineers needs authorization from Congress.
okay. And we need this in order to move forward with flood mitigation procedures?
Right.
Okay, fantastic.
Yep. Councilman Vilhar?
I guess I'm dating myself in the counts because this is the 4th or 5th time it's come before. So, because over the weekend, somebody reached out to me and said, why are we even considering this now with all the uncertainty facing us? But this is a routine item that we have, that we do need to do every year to keep our foot in the door. So just want to clear that up. But secondly, do you have any sense, Mayor, as far as, are we getting any closer, or is the Corps getting any closer to getting something approved out of Congress on this?
Yes. Actually, there's been a little bit of a flurry of activity on the federal side, and it looks promising. So, although I can't make a promise, no one will make a promise to me. It's looking like there is some interest in getting this done and the book closed.
If I'm not mistaken, Kristen or Mayor, we've got a placeholder in our budget the last several years for this, don't we? I mean, haven't we been putting this in the budget or in the CIP every year that we talked about this?
Well, whether we do or not, we're reimbursing after it's spent, so, I mean, there'll be time to put it in the budget.
Sure, I
And
understand.
Kristen, do you know? Do you remember?
It's not in the budget. I think the reason is it's been a moving target.
Okay.
So that's kind of been my understanding. It's just we know that it's there and we'll put it in when we need it.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Helene?
Thank you, Mayor. Question for you. I'm in favor of the Mahoney Creek Dam, but let's say if this study goes forward and we conduct it, what would change? I mean, would we would we suddenly have the power to construct the dam then?
We cannot construct a dam without the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers participation. And I will say this, it's really pretty amazing. Dam failures do devastating damage. No dam designed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has ever failed. And I'll say that again, it's pretty amazing. No dam designed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has ever failed. And for that reason, because of the life safety aspect of it, the laws are now that they must be involved in every project. They have to be. And a number of years ago, maybe 2001, the city attempted to move forward with the design of the dam without the Corps, and that's when we learned that fact. And it continues and persists today that there have been continuous failures of dams throughout our history as a country, but no dam designed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has ever failed. So we do have to wait for their participation. They want to do it. They have to wait for Congress to allocate the money to do it. So there are some, every year there's some discretionary funds, and this might be our lucky year.
But we would conceivably be able to construct the dam if this goes forward and we
Yes.
get the study. Okay.
Right, but not without their participation, and they won't participate unless their check boxes have a check in them. So it's gotta be cost effective. They won't build something that has less benefit than it costs. In fact, you have to have a pretty high ratio. Your benefits have to be many times over the cost of building this dam, or they won't participate in it. And then we won't get it built because we can't build it unless they participate in it. So there's lots of safety mechanisms in place for getting this done. Other questions? Anyone else? Okay, then I will ask for a roll call vote.
Okay. Albertson.
Are you muted? Dan's muted.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Bueller.
Aye.
Hoyer.
Aye.
Pauline.
Aye.
Lallam.
Aye.
Manti.
Hi, can you hear me over the train?
Yep. Rudensky.
Yes.
Roby.
Aye.
Billhauer.
Aye.
Y.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is old business. Does anyone have old business? Okay, then new business. Is there any new business? See none, will.
Albertson, Mayor.
Oh, yes, Councilman Albertson.
Mayor, in light of I had sent you an email last week in light of the fact of the virus that's hit our community and probably has hit our community hard. I would like to recommend that we suspend the tax, and I don't know where this belongs, by the way, but I would like to recommend that we suspend the tax on the downtown merchants and maybe suspend it for 6 months or something, just so that everybody gets a chance to see where this is all falling in place.
Thank you, Councilman Albertson. Kristen, can you tell us a little bit about what would be involved in suspending the tax that we've already sent over to the county to be put on?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The urban renewal tax that was submitted last year is payable in 2020. The only way that we could do that is proceed to, I'd have to get with Cindy and determine what we would need to do to abate all those taxes. Property taxes are paid April and October. We've already received a few payments this year from those property owners. So this isn't something where I can suspend the payment is actually added to their tax roll. That's why it has that timing aspect of needing to get it turned over to the county in, by November to be assessed to the taxes. So this isn't something that the finance office could do. If it's something that the council wants to proceed with, I would need to send it over to the county and determine what I can do to essentially abate those taxes.
Okay, so how is the council feeling about this? That's something you would like the finance officer to pursue? Councilman Holeen?
Thank you, Mayor. I would agree with Councilman Albertson. I would recommend, I understand, I had a talk with Kristen about this on Friday afternoon, so I understand the difficulties of doing anything now, but I would say going forward, at least, let's say through the next property tax collection period in October, I think Kristen said, so at least through October, I would say let's suspend it going forward, not collecting anymore, because we need to keep as much cash in the hands of these downtown business owners as possible so that they can stay alive. I fully applaud the council for getting that caveat in the downtown tax to give it back to the businesses if nothing is done with the downtown park, but the way that things are going, I'm not so sure when that will be, and I think we just need to do whatever we can for the downtown businesses to keep them alive. So I understand the problem with the abatement, but I would suggest going forward, let's suspend that for the time being.
All right.
Nancy? I'd like to ask a question.
Oh, go ahead, Councilwoman Manti.
Kristen, is it something that rebate versus abatement, is that something that we could look at or make a difference, or is it just a process no matter what?
Essentially, it's a process no matter what. When we did the tax last year, we then sent over the amounts to the county. The county then placed them on those taxes for those properties. So if we want to kind of pull that back, then we will have to do a process. And I have to check with Cindy what that looks like even, and when that would need to be turned over to the county to do. And I did also want to make it clear too that we have received, I think I've received 6 or 10 payments already that were for that tax that came in. So I would also have to determine how to reimburse those that have paid. So if the direction from the council is to get the information and I can bring that back to the next council meeting, I can certainly do that. And then I hopefully can have a little bit better time frame and what the process looks like.
Well, it sounds like there's at least a few council members that are willing to have you do that. So, Councilman Hoyer?
I would say before we pull the trigger on it or anything or push forward too far, let's find out the process that's going to be in place, because I think that's definitely going to be the biggest thing. Is this even
Right.
plausible at
And
this
that's what
point?
Kristen was saying.
Right.
So, yeah, she'll do a little homework and bring it forward, and then if it looks promising, we can put it on the agenda as an actual action item. So I don't think I need a motion. I'll just have Kristen, ask Kristen to do that.
Perfect.
All right.
Sarah, Don?
Is that Councilman Roby? Yes.
Yes, just a comment. We've got a deadline on building that park. I mean, that was in the ordinance, so let's just make sure we're aware of that. If we do any suspension, and again, we're in such a time of turmoil, we need to be aware of that deadline and how that would affect the ordinance or anything we would do.
Right, so probably have to do another little bit of homework on the legalities of it too. So,
Mayor?
Councilman Hoyer.
I guess I would kind of just backpack off Councilman Roby's comment a little bit. With this being a time of, we don't really know what's coming, right? So we may have to look for those opportunities where we can keep folks employed, keep people busy, and having some projects like this kind of reassures that. So maybe that's just something we keep in the back of our minds too. But yeah, I mean, we have to weigh it on both sides. just to see the pros and cons, so.
Right, thank you. Yep, definitely pros and cons. Anyone else want to weigh in on this? Okay, we do have another item of new business, which is a discussion on the sump pump collection systems, and Heath was just going to introduce the topic. There's no action tonight, just an informational piece. So, Heath, if you'll go ahead with that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This topic, we've been contemplating in the engineering office on how to address some of the neighborhoods in town that have constant sump pump flows throughout a majority of the year. As we all know, there's a good handful of neighborhoods that are in that circumstance that would fall in that category. Some of the things that other communities do, it really varies. What we've been doing in the past is we've allowed those homes to pump to the sanitary sewer system through the winter months, help prevent icing and freezing up of the exterior plumbing and causing ice jams and pools of ice on our streets and things of that nature. So short of doing that, we've otherwise been requiring that people just handle their own flows, whether it be to their backyard or out to their front curb through the warmer months of the year. Those discharges can also still tend to compound over the years and cause issues with our infrastructure. They also, obviously, they cause nuisance issues, which we hear about from time to time. You can have growth of algae, constant presence of water all summer long on the curb and in front of driveways and things of that nature. You have, in some cases, the piping running over sidewalks and things that are inappropriate in that nature as well. So in looking ahead and trying to find some ways to help mitigate the issues with the pumping in the summer months, one of the solutions is to install sump collection systems. This essentially acts as its own standalone separate system that would be a pipe placed in the ground, probably in the boulevard, maybe sometimes in an easement in the backyards, but primarily in the boulevard area. Where maybe an 8-inch pipe or so of diameter would be installed with access to connect to that pipe from each and every house along that route from their sump pump out of their house and connect to this pipe. There are some communities require that neighborhoods put these in. I know that other communities use them retroactively as well. And what we were looking for, and I wanted to start with the council, was a discussion on if we wanted to entertain doing this for our community. We've got several projects that the city is running, our capital improvement projects, where we could be incorporating these kind of improvements. And we've also got some upcoming development projects as well, where the developers, we could be requesting that they include these sump collection systems on their infrastructure when they build up their new neighborhoods. Now, some of the liabilities that are apparent to a system like this is that the city, if we were to take over ownership and maintenance of them, which if they're in our right of way, I would recommend that we would want to do. But if we do that, that's another liability on the city. It's perpetually ours to own and maintain. It's something the street crew or the wastewater crew will have to contend with from time to time to make sure that they're functioning appropriately. The other nuance to these systems is that once we get into the winter months, what do we do with them? As they're not going to be installed deep enough to be below the frost level, many of them will likely freeze up through the winter months if the sump flows continue through the winter months. And then participation, whether you can get people, you can write an ordinance to require they connect to these if we're installing them in front of their homes. But the participation is another key factor too. If we're going to go to the extent and the work and the investment to put these in, we would want to see the neighborhoods connect to them so that they're utilized and it helps prevent premature deterioration of our infrastructure. They eliminate those nuisance flows from the neighborhood. So there are a couple projects this year yet that we're finishing up design on. One of them included a stretch of 12th Avenue, another portion of 5th Street, I believe it is. Those were two prime candidates that we could probably plug these in on. whether we wanted to do that or not. I know it's a bigger discussion to have if we're going to start installing these things and or requesting them to be installed of developers as well. And just thought I'd open the discussion, see what the council had for thoughts on that. And one thing I would propose, maybe I could get direction on tonight as we finish up the design for these 2 street reconstruction projects. We could put them in treat it as a trial. Just one idea, or we could stay away from them, not put them in at all, and continue the discussion and entertain what to do down the road.
All right, thank you. I should add that these are necessitated by properties which have built below the water table, and so the sumps are constantly pumping water. And we have a history in Watertown of allowing that, even though our ordinance prohibited it. People demanded it, and politically we didn't we didn't stick with our ordinance. And currently we are asking developers to follow through and comply with our ordinance. So shouldn't be a problem in the future where we would need to put in sump pump collection systems in new neighborhoods. But because we've allowed people to build homes below the groundwater table, right now, we have issues in a couple of neighborhoods that, where people have to pump all the time. So they're 2 kind of different stories. So, and it's multifaceted for, like, first of all, building in a built environment is very challenging to put these things in. There's usually easements in the backyard, which is often low, but they're full of utilities. So if we try to dig up and put a sump pump collection system back there, we're going to run into all sorts of conflicts. If we put it in the street, it's one more thing in the right-of-way, and I'm assuming it would be in the right-of-way, could also be a potential problem. But who owns it and who maintains it in the future? So those are some things to think about. But we just did our development standards, and we did not include how to build these in the development standards, because they really shouldn't be necessary if we're following our own rules. We won't have a need for them for new developments. I guess I wanted to kind of see what the start thinking about this, because we do have a development that included it in their new development, that the city would take over and own and maintain a sump pump collection system in their development, and that's in their plans. So if we're going to, if you're in favor of taking these over and having the taxpayers own and maintain them, then we should probably set some standards. However, usually these things can be avoided, the necessity can be avoided by not building in wet areas, by enforcing the requirement to build above the water table, and those sort of methods will, and grading, how you grade. You have positive drainage out where you can actually have a drainage collection system, a surface collection system, rather than a sump pump collection system. Does anybody want to weigh in on this? Councilman Holeen?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess the question, or at least the answer, can wait. The idea is interesting to me. I think that we should pursue at least finding out more to see if this is something that we should do as a full council. Obviously, the first question that comes to my mind is this sounds quite expensive, both to construct and maintain, and I would want to know the costs on that. I don't think we necessarily need to know them tonight unless you know them off the top of your head, but that would obviously be question number 1 on my mind, and probably on a lot of other people's minds too, both construction and maintenance, because we need to know what we're getting in for. But thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Holeen. And Councilman Rademski?
Heath, do you have any idea what the cost of one of these would be to put in, and then the cost to maintain it would be?
I don't have any exact numbers off the top of my head. I know, there's obviously would be a cost. I wouldn't say it would amount to anything substantial, but there would be a cost. I could put some estimates to that on a per block basis and have that information for the council in a subsequent meeting.
Would it also be possible if the city could enact discharge only limited to backyards and nothing for hoses going across sidewalks or pumping water into streets all summer long?
Heath, do you want to?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't quite grasp the question there. Could you repeat that, please?
My question would be, could we pass an ordinance to where the discharge of sump pump water can only be limited to the backyards of residences and not into the city streets? Because potentially when you're continually discharging into the city streets and the water's running, you're at some point in time deteriorating that curb and gutter faster than it should be. Also, you would eliminate the process of hoses going across sidewalks and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's a good question, and kind of a ongoing battle, if you will, amongst which is the lesser of the two evils. We in engineering do get a lot of calls from residents where their neighbor is pumping in their backyard, is not only saturating their neighbor's backyard but also their backyard. So hence it creates a complaint into our office that their neighbor's causing saturated conditions in their lawn. So it's that kind of that dynamic of what's the lesser of the two evils. I think no matter where they're going, whether it's the individual that's discharging the lawn, they could potentially and likely impact their neighbors' backyards, depending on how they're laid out. But then the flip side, by going to the street, I mean, you're right, that's where the other issues come into play. That's where I'm, trying to look at this thing pragmatically and holistically to try to figure out for these neighborhoods what we could be doing as a community to help improve the situation all around. And I think, this is one solution. There are other solutions that other communities use by installing dewatering wells and drawing that water table down just enough to help prevent pumps from kicking on, but those become a little bit more labor intensive to maintain and operate. So yes, you are right that, that is an option where the ordinances could be amended, but I think it would create a whole different aspect of issues from that perspective.
It is already prohibited to put a hose across the sidewalk. Councilman Hoyer?
I think the other thing to kind of look at here is if this doesn't solve the discharge issue in the winter and these freeze up during the winter anyway, I don't know if they're the right solution for it. I mean, we kind of need something that's gonna work year round, because I don't really see the huge difference if they shut it off and then they pump into the sanitary sewer in the winter anyway. Like what we're really achieving there. I mean, at that point, it's like you almost should just put an elbow on your pipe going out into the street so it stays in the curb. Right. Or something. It's just, there's got to be a creative solution here. And it's a little conflicting to have everyone in the city pay for something on some homes that maybe shouldn't have been built with a basement.
Right, and that's really what it's about, is people don't want slab-on-grade homes, they want basements. And when you have shallow groundwater, you run into problems when you install basements. You don't run into those problems with slab-on-grade. So, it's been, should we tell people what kind of house they can build? Or should we let them build whatever they want and then we'll just make it right? That, it's kind of people don't like to be told, here's your lot, yes, you bought it, but no, you can't build that kind of house there. That in conflicts with what people want.
But when they're purchasing that lot, if their realtor is upfront and honest with them, they should know that before they purchase that lot, what they can and can't build on that lot.
Well, I don't know if it's a matter of honesty. I think it's more a matter of doing a little homework and understanding, because we do require our preliminary plans to show the lowest level, but that isn't recorded at the courthouse, so the realtor may not know. Councilman Hoyer?
Well, and is that something that we can potentially in the future work into an ordinance or a requirement, just that before you sell a lot, you should kind of have a ballpark estimate where that groundwater's at, so that you know that ahead of time.
Right. Okay, I think we aren't gonna finish this conversation tonight. I'm glad we started it. Heath, if you could gather some cost information, I'd like to look at that, but I do want to take just a few minutes to have an executive session discussion about a different matter, so I'm going to move on. Is there any other new business to discuss quickly? None. Okay, we do have a reason to go into executive session to discuss and consult with our legal counsel on contractual matters as well as confidential financial information for economic development purposes. And we do not expect to take action upon coming out. Is there
So moved.
a motion by Vilhauer and a second by Holeen? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I guess I need a roll call.
Aye.
vote. Sorry. Sorry, Kristen?
Okay. Albertson,
Aye.
Bueller,
Aye.
Hoyer,
Aye.
Helene,
Aye.
Lalum,
Aye.
Manti,
Aye.
Rademski,
Aye.
Roby,
Aye.
Billhauer,
Aye.
Y,
Aye.
Y. Thank you.
Okay, so now everyone who is not a council member needs to log off. So we are out of executive session and ready to adjourn. Is there a motion? Motion by Councilman Holeen and a second by Councilman Rademski. Roll call vote.
Okay, Albertson,
Aye.
Bueller,
Aye.
Hoyer,
Aye.
Helene, Lalum,
Aye.
Manti,
Aye.
Rademski,
Aye.
Roby. I'm gonna skip Roby. I don't know if he got back into the meeting. Billhauer,
Aye.
Y.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
All right, thank you. And does anybody need a quick break?
I need some set up.
Okay,
So we have some,
how much time do you need?
we need 10 minutes.
10 minutes? Okay.
Are we doing a quick break?
Yeah, we're doing a quick break, about 10 minutes.
Go hang up.
So don't